Hi everyone, it's Guillaume from Startup Basecamp. Welcome to the Tech for Climate podcast. During the show, you will have the opportunity to meet the best climate tech founders, investors, and experts from both Silicon Valley and around the globe. They will share with you their stories and personal journeys into this growing and exciting industry, giving you some insight into the ecosystems that help you to take part in the fight against climate change and benefit from the opportunities it can represent. The podcast is divided in two small interviews. So in the first part, you will get to know our speakers, their perspectives on the climate crisis and how climate tech is changing the game. The second part of the discussion will be for members of our community who will learn the speakers' secret sauce on how to and share with you their unique expertise on topics such as fundraising, management, strategy, and so on, to help you to become a better leader in your field. So before we start, I would like to quickly share what we are doing at Startup Basecamp to support climate tech founders in accessing resources and gaining visibility with investors they seek. Our initiatives include a membership-based community platform offering access to a dedicated Slack group with a growing number of founders, experts, and investors from around the world, and a series of exclusive content such as interviews, weekly job listings, events, and our quarterly online pitch of night opportunity. But more than a place where you can learn, exchange, and grow, we are building a matchmaking service to facilitate connections between our members and top investors and experts in the field. And soon, alongside with other top investors, we will be launching a small fund to co-invest in the growth and acceleration of our members. Finally, all of this is possible because of your support and donations. We are a small self-funded team, and we want you to be part of this collective movement against climate change. So please share one episode with a friend and subscribe to the channels. As an added bonus, we will plant a tree for each of our subscribers each time we reach 1,000 new fans or donors. Do not hesitate to connect with me via social media or email Guillaume at Startup Basecamp. Thanks a lot for listening. I hope to get in touch with you soon. And now, let's go for the show. Hi everyone, during this new episode of Founder Series, we sat down with Jon Salazar, founder and CEO of Gazelle Wind Power. Gazelle has developed a unique and innovative hybrid floating platform with high stability and attenuated pitch, designed and engineered by leading expert naval engineers. The company is on a mission to enable the power of wind for the globe and accelerate the worldwide opportunity for deep water offshore wind energy. I was excited to have Jon on the show and learn the ins and outs of the fast-growing offshore wind energy industry and how Gazelle has the potential to play a key role in tackling the cost and engineering challenges of deep-water floating wind turbines to unleash the industry's full potential. During this episode, you will learn about the industry and its potential for growth, what needs to happen to accelerate the development of the sector. Then we will cover with Jon the initial challenges in developing the solution Gazelle engineered from lab scale to pilot project. Finally, we will dive into their business model, their path to scale their solutions, and how you can get involved into the project. In the second part of the show, Jon will share his secret sauce to successfully raise millions from large institutional investors to finance his hardware startups. He will also share some of his best reads and how he keeps up high energy despite his intense workload. Jon, welcome to the show.
Hi, Jon. Welcome to the Tech for Climate podcast. I'm super happy to have you here with us today. I believe it's going to be a great opportunity to hear your story and learn more about your exciting adventure with Gazelle Wind Power. Your guys are on a mission to enable the power of wind for the world. So welcome to the show.
Likewise, thanks a lot, Guillaume. Great pleasure to seeing you today. I'm very excited to have this session together.
Thank you so much, Jon. So before we start, that's the way we like to frame it. If you can give us a 30-second introduction about Gazelle Wind Power.
Gazelle is one of the fastest moving technology providers for the floating offshore wind industry. This, I believe, is going to be one of the largest energy industries in the next few decades. Companies like DNV are targeting 2,000 gigawatt of offshore wind by 2050 and just floating 300 gigawatt, and this is increasing. So this has the chance to become one of the next multi-million or multi-trillion euro markets. And we are providing a key piece of technology, which is the floating foundation. We own all the IP for a disruptive solution for the floating foundation, basically enabling to place wind turbines that for the latest models can be as tall as the Eiffel Tower, can be over 280 meters in height. And we are able to put these solutions stable and floating on very, very rough deep sea water. So at Gazelle, we are introducing that technology into the market, and we are working with large energy developers, majors from the oil and gas industry in order to unlock the potential of the floating offshore wind industry.
So before we uncover all of that, let's start from the top. Can you tell us a bit more about your personal story and background? I mean, what are you passionate about? What do you love to do besides building and bringing to the world Gazelle? What makes you feel inspired or like your best self? Like, as I always ask, like, who's Jon?
Excellent. So Jon is an entrepreneur. In another life, used to be an engineer, and this is very connected to the story of Gazelle. The reasons that are moving me now are very different than the reasons that made me start all this. I exited my previous group of companies. It was a group of internet business. It was a lifestyle cash flow generating business. These are still operational, by the way. It's one of the largest Spanish-speaking communities for in financial education. So we had a group of private investors. We used to work with a variety of people all across the world. We have clients in over 32 countries, helping them to take control of their own finances. We used to work with SMEs. We had a financial coaching school. So that's what I used to do before. That was fun until it stopped to be that fun. It was a business that it was a lifestyle cash flow business and allowed me to have some free time. And that's why I decided to move into Gazelle. I'm not the inventor of Gazelle technology. I met the inventor when I was 7 years old. He inspired me to become an engineer. The inventor is a genius. He was a champion of mathematical Olympics, gold medalist. He has created naval structures now for the king of His Highness King of Spain. He led the aerodynamic part of the America's Cup sailing competitions. This person is my uncle, so I met him when I was 7 years old. And I said before, he inspired me to become an engineer. But I was a very weird engineer. I mean, I was not that interested into the technical. I was always more focused into the management side or leading teams. I was also doing small businesses. For example, on a rainy day, I recall there was a concert in Spain, and I could go and buy a bunch of umbrellas and go to that concert and sell that umbrellas, so I could go outside. So doing small businesses, learning about how the finance world worked. I started my career in a big firm, a big corporate, in a big four firm, and into the finance world. But I suddenly realized that I wanted more adventure. I wanted more uncertainty into my life. So I decided to jump 100% to entrepreneurship. When I said before we are one of the fastest moving companies in this space, is because while our technology has been developed for over 12 years, is the result of over 12 years of R&D efforts. The company was founded less than 2 years ago, and in less than 2 years, we've been able to move from a vision idea to now a growing portfolio of IP. We're going to kick off 2023 with over 12 families of patents registered in 158 countries. So we're very strong from an IP point of view. Again, focus on the floating foundation, the mooring and the anchoring systems. Basically, the technology that allows us to place wind turbines farther offshore in a very competitive way. As well as creating a group of companies. We are headquartered in Ireland. We have subsidiaries now in the UK and in Portugal, which are key markets for us. We can discuss about key markets. And we've recently completed the acquisition of a naval engineering firm as well in Spain. So we're moving quite rapidly. And on my end, when you are doing this, you need to be obsessed. That's the reality, Jon. So I'm sure we'll be discussing about this during our call. But at this point of my life, what I do is I eat, I sleep, and I do Gazelle, and I love it. It's more than a purpose than something else. So I'm very focused into this now, as you will see, as you can see.
So can you give me like maybe one example of during this like pre-Gazelle experience when you are like selling the umbrellas that are in front of a concert, so like digging your head around like different like business ideas, and then you launch your internet companies, and I mean during this all like life experience, like do you have maybe one experience per se that you recall that in a way gave you an edge to be the perfect CEO for Gazelle and really like launch the company 2 years ago based on this those last 12 years of experience and R&D that's been built around it.
Excellent. Well, first, I'm sure there's never a perfect CEO, but it's very important that we get progress. No? And at this stage, is normally you need an entrepreneur with a lot of intensity in order to drive the early stages of a company because you need to be switched on 24/7 almost every single day. At least that's my way of approaching entrepreneurship. We've recently been awarded as well by several, for example, by the S&P 500, S&P Global, as top CEO of this year, Trailblazer. So that I believe that says a lot of the intensity that you need to put. But in terms of key learnings, I would say to say it metaphorically, life and business to me, you need to kiss a lot of frogs. You need to turn a lot of rocks. So you kiss 100 frogs and you end up finding your princess or your prince. So you need to learn to deal with rejection. You need to understand this is a numbers game. No matter if you are seeking to raise capital, if you are seeking to get commercial traction or industrial traction, you need to kiss those 100 frogs. And from my early days of entrepreneurship, while I was still studying that engineering masters. I was doing all that on the side. Those were tough times while I was studying or I was working as well. And the moment I had free time, I was doing different ventures. Some of them went not that well, others went quite well. But I would say to summarize, keep it short and sweet. Life is a numbers game, and it's about kissing 100 frogs so you find your princess or your prince.
But thank you. I love the analogy. It's a good one, and I definitely will keep it for myself as well. So in all of this, like I mean, and you mentioned before was not really like focus on climate and climate like of I mean what you are like doing as an entrepreneur in itself. So what has been your driver in a way that
Yeah.
that pushed you to jump into this climatic ecosystem? Do you have any aha moment, as I like to say, maybe that you can recall or you would define as such?
No, sure, sure. As I said before, well, I started this because I wanted to help a person I admire a lot, which have been devoted his life to develop this technology. We see this effectively as a key enabler for the energy transition, as we want to tap into the power of floating offshore wind. Bear in mind that over 80% of the wind resource globally is beyond what is called deep sea water. That means that we need to go beyond 60 meters in depth from the surface level of the sea to the seabed. I mean, for that, you require a floating platform. You cannot go further. We can place solutions that can be 5 kilometers from shore, or 10, or 20, or 100, or 200 kilometers from shore. But basically, it's a key technology in order to tap into a massive potential. So I started because I wanted to help this person. I very quickly realized that I had to create a corporation around that. I exited my previous group of companies. I believe a lot in being focused, in only doing one thing at the same time. So very, very quickly, I became the first investor of Gazelle, and quite rapidly we were able to fundraise as well. In less than 3 months, we were able to bring the first investors, quite sophisticated institutional capitalists. In this case, from the UK. We can elaborate on that further on. But basically, what leads me or what drives me now is quite different. I've just arrived from Egypt. I was at COP27. This is our second COP, and we need to have a sense of urgency. So of course, this is now much bigger than myself or much bigger than our teams or our families. What drives me is I feel I have a responsibility to the world in order to introduce this technology. It's about accelerating the energy transition. Of course, it's about all the families, not just all the colleagues that are working with us, but it's about their families too. It's about the huge impact this can have. So all these things are very, very relevant for a project as such. This is quite challenging to introduce this type of technologies rapidly. Timing is very important. And if you don't have this type of drivers behind, you need this in order to go through all the speed bumps that you are going to have. So it's something that I would say it's about providing clean, affordable energy. It's about providing electricity at some point to schools, to universities, to hospitals, to SMEs, to households. It's a great responsibility in that sense. That's how I feel it. That's how I see it.
Thank you so much. So now that we know a bit more about you, John, and before we start going into detail about Gazelle, we'd like to zoom out and kind of understand the overall context that you are evolving in. I mean, let's try to get your overview of the so-called wind energy industry today, and maybe more specifically on the offshore part of it or category. I'd like to get your insights to start with some data points maybe regarding the industry today. I mean, how many gigawatts are already deployed, and if you can maybe translate for the non-technical people listening to the show in terms of like maybe households that it represents globally, and maybe what is the trends like? Do we have like growth and projection for this industry?
Sure. So let me give you that 10,000 meter view on some insights, because out of this data can be very easily searched on Google. But let me share with you a few days ago when I was in Sharm el Sheikh at COP27, there was an innovation pavilion, and that innovation pavilion had a counter like a meter, and you could see the percentage of global energy production that is as of today being generated by renewable energy. This is 12%. So if you look at entities like IRENA, which again, I suggest you can look at all that data. It's very comprehensive data, what they are doing and the targets they're setting. By 2030, they want the world to generate 65% of its global energy consumption being provided by renewables. So there is a big gap to move from 12% to 65%. Out of that 12%, 6% is mostly 6% wind, 6% solar. And then we see that there are different energy systems that are coming up or that will be enabled. But it's very important that we increase, as of today, very important that we increase renewable energy production. Now, if we look at wind power, we can almost, I would say, all our listeners are familiarized with onshore wind. I recall when I used to live in Spain, I recall 10, 15 years ago when I was traveling with my family from Madrid to the Basque Country, we could see these very large nacelles being transported. This used to be transported by road. So in the last 20 years, we've seen how it's now, as of today, it's cheaper to build an onshore wind farm than doing a combined cycle power plant in some places. We can learn a lot from onshore wind in Europe. Onshore wind in Europe is a successful story, but I would say it's also a painful one because it took us too long to get to the point where we are today. Those were the first moments in this industry. Now, what happens is the best sites for onshore wind are being taken, and this is happening in markets that are more developed in this particular industry. For example, in Europe, in some other places, you simply don't have the space in order to do onshore wind. I was before Egypt. I was in Japan. That's a very good example. That offshore wind is definitely one of the solutions to the problems they have in terms of energy security, energy transition. So after onshore wind, we started to see the first offshore wind developments. And we could see the first ones 2005, for example, happening in Ireland. We are seeing how the offshore wind industry, fixed bottom, has been growing significantly. And we can see projects now, such as Dogger Bank, that you can see projects at 12 cents per kilowatt hour, for example. So this is going down very rapidly for fixed bottom. Now, fixed bottom, in my eyes, will have the same problem as onshore wind, which means that the best sites will be taken as well. When I speak about fixed bottom, means putting wind turbines offshore, quite close to shore actually. So you need shallow waters. So in those places where you don't have shallow waters, you need or the seabed drops abruptly, you need to go farther offshore. You need to go floating, and that's what we see as the next frontier. As I was alluding before, over 80% of the wind resource, let's say the wind resource you can tap into globally, these are beyond 60 meters in depth, and that's called deep sea water. And for that you need the floating foundation. So we see that the industry is starting to move towards offshore further. That's in markets like Europe, the UK, some places in Southeast Asia or in Asia, such as South Korea, Japan. We see the first auctions for offshore wind. So in these places where the supply chain of onshore wind has already been developed, we see how this is growing. 2,000 gigawatt being forecasted by DNV of offshore wind by 2050. That's a very, very large market. Just floating offshore wind, the latest forecast it was published around a month ago. It increased the total forecast to 300 gigawatt, and this is increasing. We look at the UK. We have a very good example with ScotWind, with the ScotWind lease. For us, in February 2022, that's to me the kickoff of this industry, of the floating offshore wind industry. Initially, there were going to be around 15 gigawatt of offshore wind projected, 14 gigawatt of fixed, 1 gigawatt of floating, and we ended up seeing how most of this was floating. It increased up to 25 gigawatt, almost 15 gigawatt of floating, 10 gigawatt of fixed. You can verify that, check the numbers, but this is the key message. Now we see how this industry is really taking off. Massive opportunity for many actors, for renewable energy companies, for majors from oil and gas that they are seeking to get into this new industry. EPCAs, the engineering, procurement, construction, installation companies, technology developers such as ourselves as well, providing a key technology, and many companies across this supply chain. It's almost as if we go 100 years ago, Guillaume, and you see, this is how I feel. This is how I feel with this industry, and that's what makes me so excited. But if you go 100 years ago with the first, let's say, you look at Rockefeller with the oil, or let's say the kerosene industry. You look at Vanderbilt with the shipping industry. You look at and then with the railways. You look at Andrew Carnegie with the steel industry. Massive industries were being created. And to me, that's the very same feeling that we are all together with our colleagues in the supply chain or with our colleagues in the industry. All together, we are starting to build something that is going to be very, very large, very massive. And again, it's about enabling clean, affordable energy. It's about keeping on track with the 1.5-degree global warming scenario. It's about providing massive employment opportunities in the next decade. We forecast that there's going to be over 1 million jobs that are going to be needed for this new industry. The opportunity is massive. It's equal to the magnitude of the challenge, we can say.
So if you can tell us a bit more about today, I mean, where are those offshore park? And you mentioned like the clear difference between floating and bottom attached, installation. Where are they located towards around the world, and who in a way are the leaders in that development today? If you could tell us a bit more about who are where are we at in that sense?
Sure. So first, we need to differentiate between fixed bottom offshore using technologies such as jackets, monopiles, and the new technologies being introduced now for floating offshore wind. Because if we look at fixed bottom offshore wind, that's an industry that has already commercial projects that has, let's say, it's been the risk. So that's an industry where we see already. Let's say the institutional funding already coming in, pension funds. That's already there. We speak about floating offshore wind. This is a new industry, which in my eyes, from an investor perspective, is going to have one of the largest growths in the next decade. I would highlight floating offshore wind and energy storage. I will not digress into that. Long duration energy storage. After that, we can speak about green hydrogen once we have increased our output of renewable energy. But if I focus on floating offshore wind, the industry is now at a point where we've already seen pre-commercial projects. We can see for example, of the coast of Scotland in Kincardine, we can see a first 50 megawatt pre-commercial project. Of the coast of Portugal in Viana do Castelo, we can see as well a 30 megawatt project. We can see pilots in places like Norway, for example. In Stavanger, we can see several pilots. So we are at a point where new policies are being defined, roadmaps are being given. We are seeing how the best sites are say the sites where this is feasible in a first stage and where the wind is sustainable. These sites are being identified. We are seeing efforts from different countries on accelerating planning and permitting. That gives certainty and that leads to supply chain making investments too. So we see from port infrastructures to O&Ms, the large wind turbine manufacturers, to energy developers, to majors from oil and gas. They're already investing into this industry. And then, of course, the technology part is very key. Technology goes hand in hand with the supply chain. And we are seeing how companies like ourselves, we are introducing the next generation of technologies, not just to pilot, but actually to do this on a serial production way. That's very important. We need to think about scale. We need to think about mass production. We need to think about momentum. It's very important that the industry gets that momentum. So as we saw with onshore wind, it gets to a point where it's cheaper to do this type of projects than using other fossil fuel sources. We are also seeing how from let's say from a supply chain point of view, we can elaborate further on this because we are seeing very interesting trends with an increased requirement for local content. We are seeing how I will not digress too much into this. We can follow up after, but we are seeing how let's say a different trend from what we've seen in the last 20 years. So instead of globalization, we are seeing a regionalization. So it's a global massive opportunity. It's a global market. And at the same time, it's coming to a point where it's very important to build local supply chains.
So what are the challenges that you would define between like those fixed bottom solution offshore and the floating one? I mean, in terms of like the cost, I believe because being further from the coast, you probably need longer cable to bring the electricity back to land. I believe also like there's probably other challenges that you can face. So if you can tell us a bit more like what's the comparison, the advantage and challenges in between the two existing solutions, or are they very similar?
My message here is that the world and the energy transition needs everything. That's very, very important to understand. No? We need everything and with urgency. We need onshore wind, we need solar, we need floating offshore wind, we need fixed bottom, we need long duration energy storage, we need at some point to produce green hydrogen. We need absolutely everything. This is a big puzzle. And then depending on where you are going to deploy these projects, all these things change completely. Because if you have shallow waters, it may be more beneficial for you, and it may make more sense from an LCOE, from a levelized cost of electricity point of view, to do fixed bottom. And you don't need to get into floating. Now, in some places, you need to tap into the power of floating offshore wind. So LCOE, if we look at this from a cost perspective, this is highly dependent on the location where you are doing these projects. It's highly dependent on the supply chains. There are many factors. From a sustainability point of view, for me, it's a clear advantage on going further offshore to floating. And of course, we are at a stage where relevant data is being gathered. But if you look, for example, simply to put a very practical example, Guillaume, if you look at the installation, when you do fixed bottom, you need to perform the seabed. You need to perform the seabed for monopiles. In some places, for example, if you look at places like Taiwan, when you have seismic movements or you have earthquakes, the seabed becomes liquid. So these wind turbines, if they are not piled enough beyond the seabed, they will tilt. No? So it's about the cost that those solutions are required to, the installation, maintenance in this type of cases, and it's also about the scale. It's about efficiency, because when you go further offshore, for the latest wind turbine, the O&Ms are working on 50 megawatt, 60 megawatt, 40 megawatt wind turbine generators. So that allows us to actually be more efficient. So it's a factor of efficiency too. It's a factor of sustainability. For us, one of the key innovations we are introducing is that we are reducing 80% the footprint with our technology, because we are not using standard catenary mooring lines. We are not using that. Imagine a catenary with this form, a catenary-based mooring system. Those are chains that can be very thick, and with all the currents, they can erode the seabed. On our end, we are using vertical moorings almost as a TLP, although this is not a TLP. This is, we believe, or the feedback we received, this is the first dynamic mobile mooring system for floating offshore wind being developed. It's disruptive technology, it's an innovation. So we don't need to use catenaries. We have vertical mooring systems, but without the mooring loads of a TLP. It's an innovation. That allows us to create fishing corridors as well. This is a very important point of view too, all the spatial marine planning, how we're going to work with all the different stakeholders at seas, because the seas are very crowded. But I would say that we believe that floating offshore wind will be competitive from a cost perspective with fixed bottom towards the end of this decade. It's very important to understand now the golden era, or the golden era of floating offshore wind will be in the 2030s. We'll start to see the first large commercial projects towards the end of this decade. Things could accelerate as we saw with onshore wind, but at the moment, I'm seeing 28, 29, 2030, 31, 32 for the first large, the first commercial floating offshore wind farm. What is large? Well, if we look, for example, in terms of scale and impact, let's talk about impact. For example, one gigawatt can power 300,000 households, European households. So if we were speaking before about 2,000 gigawatt, 2 terawatt, or we were speaking about 3 gigawatt. One gigawatt could 100 gigawatt could power 32 million households, and this is clean and affordable energy.
So, and thanks for presenting this whole context and giving all of those very interesting insights and data points. So, according to you, I mean, what needs to happen to accelerate the deployment of the offshore wind turbine in energy production? I mean, both ways, fixed bottom or floating one. I mean, do you see any regulation in place that are blocking it or that are missing to accelerate that movement? Is it like a new capital that needs to be deployed or new technology? I mean, what is missing to really accelerate this whole deployment, according to you?
So I would highlight three elements, and these three elements need to happen, and they're happening. They're happening actually, and I indirectly alluded to this before on your previous question. Number one, we need policy, we need certainty. Number two, supply chains, infrastructure. Number three, technology. So number one, if we speak about policies, we are seeing some governments taking the lead into this. Introducing first policies such as feed-in tariff, some other countries moving from feed-in tariff to feed-in premium, but we are definitely seeing an effort from policymakers to accelerate this new industry. It's very relevant. This is a new industry, and it's very relevant that there is some stimulus initially. So the right policy, the right stimulus, the right mechanism, so developers don't get in completely at lost on these projects, or they are not largely exposed to margin risk. That's very relevant for the industry to get that momentum. Another key word is momentum. We need this first these pilots that are already happening, the first pre-commercial projects that are already happening, the first commercial projects that needs to keep moving forward. That needs to happen. Another very relevant point is faster permitting and planning. The average offshore wind project in Germany, for example, it takes 7 years to complete that process. So that's too long. We don't have that much time. So it's very important that we have faster permitting and planning, and also that we engage with the local communities. That's very, very relevant too. As I said before, the seas are quite crowded. There are many actors there. There are fisheries in some countries, such as Japan. There are over 130,000 fisheries. So it's very important that we work together from the very, very early days. In other countries, you see the army So the defense forces, this can impact tourism, it can impact other projects. So it's very important that we do that faster permitting and planning with early engagement and sustainable engagement of those communities. And we don't have our choice. With increase of acidity levels going on and this increase or these changes due to global warming, we need to work together. We need this type of solutions. So that's number one. And having said that, we need certainty as well. We need a clear roadmap. We need that certainty. So number two can happen. Number two, we need supply chains that can actually step up to the magnitude of this new industry. We need infrastructure. Is one thing is to do a pilot. A very different thing is to do this for mass production. Very different thing is to do a floating platform per week or per 2 weeks, do the assembly quite rapidly, do all the installation, where are the ports where this is going to happen, what's the draft of these ports, what are the service vessels that are going to serve this demand. Again, it's a challenge. At the same time, it's such a big opportunity. And last but not least is the technology. There are technologies that can float and survive already for this industry. Now we need innovation will play a huge role in addressing the decarbonization goals. That's the best way to put it. We need innovation. That's very key. And again, for that, we need engagement between or among all the stakeholders. So technologies that go hand in hand with supply chain and infrastructure capabilities, so we can, with faster permitting and planning and with the right policies, we can get to scale. We can get that momentum. That's key. We need to get to scale quite rapidly.
So to close this section about the macro environment, can you tell us a bit more about a little bit about like the stage of recycling of all of those wind turbine and component, and like what's the impact of those turbine into the general overall environment? I mean, we know that it's producing 100% green energy, but what's the ratio by all the energy and component that need to be put in place to produce that energy? And then what's happened after? Like what's the recycling or upcycling part of it? Are we already developed on that sense, or is it too early for that? And there's still a lot of opportunities to, in a way, make it better than just trashing the remaining parts to the dumpsters. Tell us a bit more about like this all more impact approach of the industry today.
Yeah. So here are for me, there are two key ideas I'm going to share with you. Two key ideas. The first one is with COVID, with the invasion of Ukraine, with some of the geopolitical tensions that we are also seeing in Southeast Asia, China, Taiwan. We see that supply chains are being disrupted. Supply chains are now very, very different than what it used to be before. So now the robustness of a supply chain now has become a matter of energy security, because all the different routes are completely changing. So as I was alluding briefly before, what we are seeing is this is a trend that was happening before and now has been accelerated. Now, what I'm seeing is an export of white-collar jobs. For example, I've been working with a key certification authority that has certified the technical feasibility of our technology, of the principle that is patented, that is the current technology. And almost for the last 2 years, I thought this person was in London. I thought the entity is based in London. I thought they were in the UK. And not too long ago, I found out this person was in Brazil. He's been working in Brazil for the last 2 years. So white-collar jobs, this type of jobs, it could be lawyers, it could be accountants, it could be these technical professionals. That's being exported. Doesn't matter at all where you are. While blue-collar jobs are being imported. And we can see some policies happening. We can see, for instance, in the US IRI, we can see some countries increasing local content rules. UK, for instance, up to 60%. So we see that almost regionalization of global workforce and of supply chains, and that has a gap as well. That has a big gap because there are skills that are to be filled, and that's as well a big opportunity for many countries to fill in these gaps. Now that would be my first comment is that one. Supply chains are changing. There is a trend to build local supply chains, to do local manufacturing. And very connected to this are the materials. And I will get to the answer of recycling. But if we speak about energy transition, to me, there are two key materials. It's true that you can see many discussions about lithium or some rare earth materials, and normally this is quite related to EVs and that other part. But if we really think about what are the key materials for the energy transition to happen, to me these are two. To me this is about steel and this is about concrete, and all this is moving is moving towards green. It's moving towards green steel and sustainable solutions. Now, the materials where these are being sourced, the routes are changing because of the reasons I mentioned before. It's a matter of energy security as well. It's a matter of energy security and energy transition. If we speak about building these wind turbines, if we speak about building these solutions, these floating foundations, this is about steel. This is about concrete, and these are quite recyclable solutions. For the wind turbines, as a matter of these supply chain constraints and these changes in the global geopolitics about how these supply chains work, we are seeing some O&Ms that are working very hard on recycling their blades as well. So there are many efforts being put on making all these solutions more green and towards recycling. And the reasons I alluded to before about that regionalization instead of keep that globalization, that's playing a big part too. And of course, it affects the cost. It affects the cost. It affects the margin risk too.
So thanks for sharing all of that. Now let's go deeper into Gazelle. I mean, you already unveiled quite a bit during the first part of the interview, but if you can like quickly remind us, like the story behind it, the gap that your uncle identified initially that led to the current version of Gazelle, and in a way, why did Gazelle have to exist?
So again, this is a massive market opportunity. And when you look at most of the solutions out there, these are combinations of three types that you can easily Google. TLPs, tension leg platforms, semi-submersibles, and spar designs. 95% of these, or even more, they come from the offshore oil and gas industry. We believe there is an inherent problem in size for these solutions. These solutions, in order to keep the wind turbine stable and floating, they require a massive amount of steel or a massive amount of concrete. What we are introducing is disruptive technology. This doesn't follow the same principles as these other competitors, and that's why we can aim to have such a lightweight platform. We aim to reduce capex in excess of 30%, having a great impact on LCOE. We expect to reduce LCOE by 10% in comparison to the standard out there. We are using a third of the steel of some of the mainstream technologies out there. And we can do this because we are, as far as we are concerned, we are the first ones in separating the floatability and the stability. So the floatability is provided by the hull. The hull is a very modular structure. We have early engaged with fabricators. That's very important for this industry. You need to develop solutions that are quite modular, very easy to assembly, very easy to manufacture. Ease of assembly to me is that's marketability. We follow that shipbuilding approach for the hull of the structure, which is made of steel, and then the mooring system, which is where most of our IP we put in our efforts on. That's what provides the stability. And the IP basically it's like a Swiss arm knife. Depending on where we are doing these projects, depending on the wind, the current, the waves, the tide, depending on the seabed, depending on those mid-ocean conditions, we can use different set of moorings. But basically, as said before, the mooring system, which uses a set of, we could use a set of wire ropes connected to a counterweight, and we have different mechanisms to do that. That's what provides the stability. So it's a simple, passive mooring system that allows us to use a third of the steel of some of the mainstream technologies. These are some of the key highlights, and from a sustainability point of view, as said before, we aim to reduce 80% the mooring footprint as a consequence of this mooring system. And this is a floating solution. We don't need to be, we don't require heavy perforation on seabed because it's a floating solution. We can use different type of anchors, anchoring system, depending on the seabed. That's why we have impact funds such as Catapult Ocean, Norwegian VC, or now we're working with other blue funds such as Indico Capital in Portugal, as they see that this has a huge, of course, a huge potential economically from that capex saving perspective, while keeping OPEX competitive, but at the same time very favorable with marine ecosystems. And of course, we want to provide clean, affordable energy. That's at the core. That's at the heart of what we're doing.
So you guys are like at the pilot stage right now, like getting out of the test and the development there. Is that correct?
We already have proof of concept. We've done Basecamp testing. That was done for one of the main energy developers. That was 165 mock-up of a 10 megawatt DTU wind turbine. The main conclusions of that is the principle behind the technology is very robust. And again, all that belongs 100% to Gazelle Wind Power Limited. That has been verified by third parties such as DNV. So the principle behind is very robust and can be scaled up. And now we're working on our next big milestone, which is to do a large-scale demonstrator. We have several locations to do this. On the other hand, we are at the same time working with some of the key O&Ms and developers on doing a commercial wind turbine, and that's for a 15 megawatt commercial wind turbine. So we have several projects already where we are hands-on. We are now at a tipping point where again we're very strong from an R&D and innovation point of view, and on this tipping point we are putting a lot of emphasis now, and you will see this in the next few months and the next year on project delivery. That's something very relevant for us now.
So can you tell us a bit more about like the production phase? So when outside of like this pilot, like how do you what's your vision behind like producing at scale and in mass those feeds or floating mechanism for those wind turbines? I mean, are you guys planning on like building your own factories, working in collaboration with existing producers, and maybe how do you onboard those existing producer? Because I guess
Sure.
there's few of them, but not like it's not like just deciding to bake something new or like build something new. You need large infrastructure like that. So tell us a bit more about that.
Sure. So it's very important to say first, this is an industry. It's a new industry. All of these players I have alluded to, all our colleagues at supply chain, we are working on building this new industry. This new industry may not have the same supply chain setups that we saw on fixed bottom, on of course on onshore wind. So as of today, what we are seeing is the energy developing companies. These companies are technology agnostic, most of them. That means that for a specific site or a specific location, based on the conditions I alluded before, methods and conditions, based on supply chain factors, they are benchmarking the best set of technologies. They are benchmarking the best possible wind turbine and also the supply chain. So the benchmark based on these three factors, let's say the floating foundation, which is where we are focused on. Mm-hmm. The wind turbine, on our end, we are working with O&Ms on coupling with the latest wind turbine designs, and then the supply chain arrangements that we put in place. And this is where all the local content requirements, all these matters take into place. So we ourselves, we are licensing our technology, and we are providing bespoke engineering services to these engineering developers. Of course, we, as part of the vision we have, we see several other opportunities, other verticals where we are doing business or we plan to do business. That's part of the vision that we have as a group. Now, you need to also consider the EPCI companies, all the engineering, procurement, construction, installation companies. These are the companies that are key in order to, for example, having manufactured a steel floater, and this can be done anywhere really. On our end, this is an example. We have an agreement with a manufacturing yard in the Middle East. We can build Lego blocks, almost as if you see Lego blocks, and we can send for instance, to Scotland. It takes us 21 days to send these Lego blocks to Scotland. We can do a local assembly. We can place the wind turbine onshore on the floating foundation and simply tow the platform to the site where the wind farm is going to take place. So there are several actors. You have energy developers. You see some major from oil and gas that are as well now jumping, I would say, astute major from oil and gas jumping into this industry. You have these installation, construction, procurement, installation, engineering companies, technology providers such as us that are providing key innovations. I alluded to the manufacturers before, and I'm missing other companies providing the moorings, for instance, the wire ropes. We have a great partnership with Brydon Becker, the wire rope group, in order to provide that. For example, you have companies providing all the monitoring for some of the parts. It's such a great opportunity for many companies to get into this industry, as you can see.
So how did you, excuse me, but how did you convince them at first, like from your prototype to now, like working with you and developing this new future together? Like, what was the initial, like, if you have like any,
Yeah.
like example of like maybe like experience, like did you face any roadblock at first? Because I guess it's can be also like maybe a bit more conservative industry on that sense.
No, look, of course, the vision, the leadership, that's important, but you get to a point where the product is very important, and that's the reality. The reality is we have a game-changing product that we are developing. Um, to me, as a founder and CEO, it's frustrating sometimes because I would like to show way more about my technology, and until now, it simply was not the point. There was no point for me on going to a major industry event and showing the disruptive elements of this technology. It was not the timing. You will start seeing from next year on that we start to show now more and more. We start to disclose more and more aspects about our technology. But the reality is, once you start developing that initial relationship, and these players, these O&Ms, developers, EPCIs, or key partners at supply chain level, as well as investors, once they get to know more about the technology, the principle behind how simple and brilliant it is, um, there is, I mean, they fall in love basically with that, Guillaume. So it's very, at the end behind all that is a product with big disruptive potential. That's what they're seeing, and that's very important.
Can you tell us a bit more about like the current and expected economics in a way? I mean, what's the business model you mentioned, like licensing model that you guys have? What are the future projection? I mean, if you can tell us a bit more about all of that.
Oh, sure. So as we said before, the market is such a big opportunity, it's a huge market, and the floating foundation, the piece and the moorings, the piece we are accounting, has a huge impact in the LCOE. The floating foundation and those moorings account for roughly, according to the MB, 33% of the impact on the LCOE. So having a lighter floating foundation, having a foundation that can be streamlined, that can be serially produced, that means significant savings for developers, means a significant impact for the LCOE. We are targeting to achieve a reduction of 30% capex of the total cost of the project, and we aim to license our technology based on this capex reduction. So business model based on licensing, and of course we have that capability as well to provide key engineering services in order to couple, in order to adjust, to do a bespoke technology, a bespoke solution depending on the site. So our basic business model is based on those numbers,
Yeah.
on that model.
In terms of defensibility and competition, I mean, like how defensible are you guys in terms of like this, new design, and how can you protect yourselves from, other less well-intended companies that would like to, copy what you have been putting out there, and if you can tell us a bit more about like the existing competition or alternatives that is existing today that you guys could, fight against or compete against while entering into full steam into the market.
Sure. So again, the market opportunity is massive. There will not be just one solution to rule them all. I have the vision of 9, 10 solutions having over 80% of the market share, maybe less. Maybe there will not be 9 or 10. Maybe there will be 5 or 6 or 4 or 5. Maybe this gets more commoditized, as we've seen with the wind turbine market. That bottom line message is say there is a place for many players, for several players. Some players may dominate a market, and others, completely different technologies, may dominate a different market. For example, the technology is being adapted for Japan, or for Japan with what I alluded before, with all the fisheries and deep sea water, maybe very different from the solutions used for the west coast of the US, where you need to go between 900 meters and 1,300 meters in height from the surface level of the to the seabed. So maybe using a catenary line doesn't make that much sense in a place as such, where you need to go to 1 kilometer. And the solution for North Sea, or for Mediterranean Sea, or for Atlantic Ocean is different. So that's the first thing I would like to specify. The second thing is there are some companies that have been pioneering this industry, and I'm respectful, and I admire them in a way, because they've been opening the path for us. And those were first generation of technologies that effectively can float, can be under survival conditions in very rough seas. And what we are doing now is introducing the next generation. It's introducing those set of technologies that will be able to be serially produced, and that we have a competitive edge based on the innovation of the technology in order to provide significant savings. And that's exactly what we are doing. The last bit is, of course, you need patents, you need IP. This basically allows you to commercialize effectively your technology. As I said before, we're kicking off 2023 with almost a dozen families being filled in 158 countries. We are moving forward very, very rapidly from this point of view. We're very strong from R&D and innovation point of view. The inventor is with us, and he's all we do, same as myself, we eat, we sleep, and we do Gazelle. So we are very, very fast, very quick on that. Second point is the supply chain relationships that you build. Being able to access to specific products, that you are the only company that can tender in using that specific product. That's very key for us. And last but not least is the pace of innovation. The most important thing is your pace of innovation. And in that sense, as I said before, we've been developing this. This is the result of over 12 years of R&D. So we are not, you're moving forward very rapidly in that sense. If someone tries to emulate what we're doing, we have all these years of, it wouldn't be that worth to try to do that. Probably it's better to try to do business with us rather than to try to emulate that.
So what's next for Gazelle, and what are your next milestones for the next couple of years now?
Our next big milestone, Guillaume, is to do a large-scale demonstrator, and we have several proposals in order to deploy this demonstrator. So we aim to deploy that by 2024. We expect this will have major global repercussion. There are now there are several strategic companies looking at those outcomes. So they're all very excited. And as I said before, we are now at that tipping point where we are focusing now on delivery of that project, and at the same time working on delivering a commercial product. And that's further down the line. For that, we are targeting from 2025, 2026 on. But those are two of the key milestones. We have several investment opportunities open as well. We are now completing an equity investment transaction led by institutional capital. And this is something that, as of today, for the next 4 weeks, we will keep receiving commitments. So that's something that we can get our discussions to our next level as well, if any investors are keen or interested in exploring the opportunity.
So what's your personal opinion on the climate crisis, Jon? I mean, as I always ask to everyone on the show, are we doomed? I mean, what would be your words to people who are like feeling demoralized by all the already visible consequences of climate change?
I'm an entrepreneur. That means that I dream big. I dream big, Guillaume. I dream big. Try to think big as well. We need speed. We need to get into that delivery. We need electrification. As I said at the start of our discussion today, when you look at that counter in the Innovation Pavilion at COP27, we are still at 12% of renewable energy production globally. We need to increase that very, very rapidly. That's not only for one technology or one industry. This is a major puzzle. There are many pieces of this puzzle. We need absolutely everything. I'm a big believer. Of course, when the sun shines, you need solar. When the wind blows, you need wind. I'm a big believer in the floating offshore wind industry, of course. I strongly believe this will become one of the largest energy systems in the next few decades. There's a large discussion about green hydrogen as well. In order to get to that point where we actually convert the excess of reliable energy to green hydrogen, well, of course, we first need the excess of reliable energy. So we need to increase significantly the output of wind and solar and other sources of reliable energy, and we need to store that too. We need storage for these renewables, and then we can speak about converting to green hydrogen. But my message here is we need that sense of urgency in order to solve the challenges I alluded before from a policy point of view, from a supply chain and port infrastructure point of view, and of course for the innovation component. We need the key technologies. Well, that opens a whole discussion as well about fundraising and how you kick off a project as such, how you can fund all these projects which are quite capex intensive. But I will not get into that unless you wish. And that's a whole new discussion, of course.
So, but then I believe that you feel that we can go through these climate change challenges that the whole world is facing, and that we should not be desperate, but we should all be active and spend time and knowledge and financial resources towards that movement. Correct?
So I'm a big believer in focus. So on my end, I'm on a mission. My mission is this one. I must introduce this technology into the market. This can be a key enabler. This will allow to tap into the power of floating offshore wind globally. I'm sure there are other entrepreneurs, other executives, other professionals solving other problems. So this is a big puzzle with many pieces, and I'm expecting other people to be obsessed on solving the problems for the other pieces. So I'm obsessed with solving this one, of course.
How can our listeners, investors, founders, experts around the world who are listening to the show today can help you, Jon?
Well, we welcome them to follow us on LinkedIn, to get into gazellewindpower.com and learn more about what we're doing, all the updates, all the different other news that I haven't shared with all of them today. Depending on if they are a potential supply chain partner or potential developer or an investor, or simply they want to be an ambassador, they want to be closer and be part of this to me, again, very important mission, very important purpose. Feel free to reach out. We need to collaborate globally. No, I'm sure there are brilliant minds listening to this now all over the world, and I'm sure their talents, their skills, their thoughts can be very beneficial.
Any question that I did not ask you that I should have for this first part of the show?
No, I believe this was very comprehensive. Again, all listeners, feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn, to reach out to our website, and I'm sure whether it's funding or it's doing business or it's collaborating and becoming part of our community, we welcome them very much, and I thank you very much for their time, for listening to this discussion, and to yourself too for having me, Guillaume. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jon, for your time, your incredible insights, and all the hard work that you do to bring this innovative solution to the world and to life. So thank you so much for coming on the show with us today.
Hi, it's Guillaume again. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the show. As I said, do not hesitate to share an episode with a friend. Also, if you value the work we do for the climate tech ecosystem, here is how you can contribute to it. Today, I'm asking for your support and a donation or sponsorship to make the work of our self-funded team more viable. Even a small contribution means a lot to us. In any case, I will invite you to subscribe to our channels and visit our website startupbasecamp.org to discover more episodes like this one and get your membership to access all our members' exclusive content. So remember, all of this is possible because of your support and donation. And we want you to be part of this collective movement against climate change. Let's keep in touch, and I hope you will enjoy our next show with us.